Tonight on the line, who cares about the title? What a duo! With your host, Shannon Q, and featured guest, Dark Matter 2525. This is The Line.
Hi guys! Welcome to The Line. We are very privileged tonight to have my friend who I'm so excited is here this evening. Has never taken calls before, so I'm super excited to be the one that gets to do it with him. Just in case anybody lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are, why don't you tell everybody who you are and where they can find you, Dark Matter?
Oh, well, I didn't even think about how to introduce myself. I've been around YouTube for a while, so you have probably heard of me. I've been on YouTube since 2008, and I've been making animations mostly dealing with the religion debate from an atheist perspective, and they've been pretty popular. So I must be doing something right in that regard. And my channel is the same as the name you see here, Dark Matter 2525.
And I'm so excited that you're here with us tonight. You are one of the nicest people. I was privileged enough to be able to be a voice on one of your cartoons in the Power Corrupt series. And it was an absolute honor, and you were a pleasure to deal with. And I developed an absolute adoration for you as a human being because you're so nice and kind. So I'm super excited that you're here tonight. And hopefully no one's mean to you on these calls. Usually we have pretty good quality callers. So I'm excited for you to interact with everybody. And I'm sure everybody is really pumped to interact with you. Are you ready to go?
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to say you were really good to work with too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. Always, insightful ideas, and you did a fine job with that video.
Thank you. Well, I had to. It was a Dark Matter video. I had to. Are you kidding?
You made things easy on me. You made things easy on me.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. We're going to jump right into calls because there's already people waiting in the queue. The number is being displayed on the screen below. If you would like to call in and ask us questions or have a conversation, we are looking forward to talk to you. There's already some calls in the queue. If you call in and you are getting a busy signal or not, well, I don't think you get a busy signal. It'll disconnect you directly to voicemail. The best time to call it is right when somebody hangs up so that you can push yourself into the queue. So if you want to call in, please do. We're looking forward to talking to you. All right. The first call that we're going to take is Matthew. Hi, Matthew. You're on the line. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, I didn't think I'd get on it first. Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
I spoke with you a couple days ago, actually, over Discord. I'm not sure if you remember me or not.
Yes, absolutely.
And hi, Dark Matter. I've not encountered your content before, but your beard is awesome, and I'd love to see more of you.
Thank you.
Anyway, sorry, first call jitters. My heart is beating 1,000 times a minute right now.
You're totally okay,
Anyway,
Matthew.
so I'm not sure if you see the notes already. Cynthia's a great call screener, by the way. Hi, Cynthia. Anyway, I'm an atheist here, and I had come out as an atheist after I moved out of my parents' place, and now I've moved back in. My parents are a bit older, and this is related to what the call's about. My parents are a bit older, and they're not quite there with technology, so when they need things, like let's say need things ordered on Amazon or on Indigo, which is the bookstore up here in Canada, they often come to me, and I'll use my account to order it for them, even if it's being delivered somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done this for them quite a few times, including even ordering a Bible for my aunt to have it delivered to her place.
Okay.
But just an hour ago, my mom came to me and says, oh, could you have something delivered to your grandmother in Vancouver, which is the opposite side of Canada for us? And I'm like, yeah, sure. What is it? And my mom's like, it's The Lie by Ken Ham.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh boy.
No. Oh, we both made faces.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, why? It couldn't have just been Lee Strobel or something. Like, why did we have to be Ham? For some context, I have already specifically had a conversation with my mom about Ken Ham, and to never ever bring him up in front of me ever again.
Right.
Because it's Ken Ham.
Yeah,
and I don't
fair
know
enough.
how to nicely tell my parents, because I've never said no. I've never said no to helping my parents out with this kind of thing. And my grandmother's a nice, sweet old lady, and she really wants this book, but I'm like, I don't want to give Ken Ham any money. I wanted to get your guys' take on this. I mean, this is super fresh. I literally, just after I finished watching AX, my mom came into the room and asked me about this, and I'm like, I have to get Shannon's take. Oh, I have to get both your takes, actually.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can go first. So it's difficult to say no in that circumstance when they're looking for assistance, and I can understand that. But it all depends on what your goals are. Like, are your goals in the conversation to kind of change their mind, or are you looking to kind of discourage her from sending that type of book? I guess the best course of action would be to maybe even ask, why does Nan want this book? What do you think?
I know she wants this because, just as my parents are, she's like deeply, deeply religious and wants to. She just wants to read this disproving of evolution, and at the moment, and this is the other mitigating factor, my grandmother does not know I'm an atheist. My parents do, but my grandmother doesn't, and I cannot bring myself to tell her. Oh man.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm completely freaking out on the live call-in show. What am I doing?
No, you're okay. You're totally okay. Don't freak out. You're fine. You're in a comfortable environment. Before I continue, Dark Matter, did you want to add anything, or did you want me to keep going?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that if you said, that you were going to get this book, if you agreed to it, then I would follow through with that. But I don't know, what are the chances of maybe slipping in an extra book? One that might counteract it a little bit.
I actually have a book in mind for that, but again, it would require me to reveal to my grandmother that I'm an atheist. The book in mind I'm thinking is Aaron's book about basically the same topic, the fallacies or fundamental falsehoods of creationists. Yeah, I just got that book a couple weeks ago, and I've been reading through it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why I love Aaron. But oh man, it's such a difficult. By the way, just for context, I have not yet agreed to it. I sort of told my mom, I'm like, I'm not sure. Let me talk to you later. Because I wanted to get your guys' take before I made any agreements.
Yeah. Does your mom know that your mom knows you're an atheist, right?
Yeah, she very much knows I'm an atheist, and she, as I said a little bit earlier, she also knows that I specifically dislike Ken Ham.
Could you potentially have a conversation
from him? And I just, pardon me, sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There's a little bit of a lag. I don't mean to talk over you, Matthew. I was just going to say that, is it possible that you could maybe have an open conversation with her if she's receptive to it about why doing this makes you uncomfortable?
You know what? Honestly, I think I could probably do that because at the end of the day, I don't think they've promised my grandmother that they could send it out. And I see people in chat commenting about not giving them money, give them a used copy. At the end of the day, if I refuse to do this, they're just going to buy the book and ship it like the more expensive manner. Like, she's going to get the book one way or the other. The import is whether I'm involved in the process, because it would save my parents money. But I'm thinking, you're making a point. I just honestly sitting down with my mom and just saying, hey, like, I am specifically uncomfortable with this. Maybe I could liken it to something that she'd be uncomfortable with, like if I asked my parents to buy me like the Satanic Verses or something like that, which has nothing to do with Christianity, but they wouldn't know that anyway. Yeah, honestly, honestly, just
it's
talking
important to
with you
set
and
boundaries,
I-
right, Matthew? Like that would be an opportunity for you to teach your parents some boundaries with you with regards to what you deem acceptable when it comes to them, using you as a conduit to send propaganda, essentially, to other members of your family.
Yeah. I mean, if it was just a fancy Bible, I'm like, whatever. But it's not just a fancy Bible. It's like one of the biggest charlatans in Christendom. I'm like,
in the world.
But yeah, you know what? I'm feeling a lot better about this. Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Dark Matter. I wasn't joking. Your beard calms me down. Honestly, I specifically I try to grow a nice beard, and I see you on screen. I'm just like, oh, I want your beard. It's so good. I know some host looks is not cool, but I have to say this. I'm sorry.
Okay,
no, that's okay. I appreciate it.
We are going to let you go, though,
but,
Matthew.
Honestly, you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys have really helped me figure things out. I know it's a short call, but I'm like, I have to call Shannon, I have to call Dark Matter, I have to call you guys because, like, anyway, thank you. I'll let you guys go. I know there's probably plenty of people you want to talk to. I will definitely bug you again, Shannon, on Discord next time I see you there.
Yeah, for sure. Please do. I always enjoy interacting with everybody on Discord. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, Matthew. Bye.
You too. Have a lovely.
Oh, I accidentally hung over too soon. The lag is killing me. That's so nice. Yeah. But that's a hard question to answer, though, because it's so dependent on the type of relationship that you have with people, too. And I often worry that, I don't want to give somebody advice that ultimately ends up damaging a relationship. So I think the best thing to do is open dialogue and see where it goes and feel it from there. Do you have any differing perspectives on that? Or
no, I mean, it's a rough situation. I have a religious family too. And for a long time, my brother sent me apologetics books. And he sent me a study Bible. And these things became very valuable to me because they gave me, the perspectives that I needed to understand in order to argue against. So like, he thought he was helping me, but in actuality, he was strengthening my channel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I get that interaction with family, and sometimes it can be really rough. But I mean, in the end, when we're talking about a grandmother, her views are not likely to change this late in life. I would not think so. And I see it as more of a priority to affect the youth. I know some people might think that sounds bad, like indoctrination or whatever, but I'm not talking about like telling people this is the way it is. I'm talking about not being dogmatic about either way. I'm talking about it's okay to question things. It's okay to come to your own determination. It's okay to look at both sides of the argument. And like my kid, who you might have seen running around here, I'm not going to tell him God does or does not exist. That's for him to figure out. That's his question, his journey to take, just like it was mine. But when it comes to someone very late in life, I think it's already a done deal.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I agree with what you say about kids. Like I always say about my 9-year-old, I'm trying to teach him how to think, not what to think. And I think that's a really important difference. And you're right. Like once you get to that age, you're pretty well entrenched, but it is important to set boundaries with your family about what they're going to utilize you for and what how they're going to interact with you, and respecting your beliefs as well. If they're expecting you to respect their beliefs and to even act as a conduit to transmit them across the country, then they should understand that impact that it has on you, and they should be able to have an open dialogue about what that means. So I think that that's a good place to start. It's just always open dialogue is the best place to start most of the time, I think. So we're going to go on to the next caller. So our next caller is going to be Laura. So hi, Laura, you're on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Oh, Oh, hey Shannon. Hey Dark Matter.
Hi,
Hi.
Laura.
I just want to make sure y'all can hear me before I kept going.
Yeah, we can, Laura. Go right ahead. What would you like to discuss?
Okay. So, my quick background is I was raised Church of Christ and struggled a lot with my beliefs and, you know, just constantly was like dismissing parts of the Bible, be like, oh, well, yeah, okay, so the Old Testament condones these bad behaviors, but that's the Old Testament. Oh, well, the Pharisees said this, but that's the Pharisees, you know? And it just got to the point where I was like, why am I even trying to fit the Bible into my beliefs? Because I feel like that's like basically the opposite of Christianity. And so I just got to the point where I tried to like stop believing, and you know, now I'm really just don't care. But what I have found since I have stopped caring is I have a lot of anger inside of me. And I know when I was far more devout in my beliefs that I felt at peace. But I also felt like I was being duped. And now that I don't really buy into it anymore, I just find I have a lot of anger inside of me, and I don't really know, is that normal when you start coming out of the religious beliefs to feel anger?
Yeah. It definitely is. Yes, there's a reason that there's this, you know, sort of stereotype of the angry atheist. And Jimmy said on this channel, like when you first deconvert, maybe just, you know, be calm. I think he puts it a little bit more strongly than I would, but you know, just, you know, be calm. Don't go out and fight and look for interactions for a little while, because there's a multitude of reasons that you might feel angry. One of the primary ones for a lot of people is that they feel duped. Like they feel as though they no longer can, you know, trust the people around them who taught them things. They now have to entirely rebuild how they make assessments on things that they were taking on trust before. They realize that the systems that they utilize to come to what their concept of what truth is maybe are fallible and weren't working for finding truth. And what does that mean for other beliefs that they might have? Their relationships may get stressed. There's lots of things to be angry about when you deconvert. That sense of peace that you had may have been based entirely on, you know, the sort of complacency regarding, you know, taking what you believe is true for granted. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing, but these things can be worked through. You just need to assess what the source of that anger might be. Do you have any thoughts, Dark Matter, before we keep going?
Well, yeah, I would second that. I'm not as useful here because I never deconverted. I was just never a believer, but I've encountered, most of the atheists I've encountered were people that used to believe, and they've expressed this anger as well that dissipates over time, and they often refer back to their angry atheist days, you know. And I would say that you know, it's to try to realize that people aren't lying, you know, that they actually believe this stuff. So it's not any malicious, you know, like any more than when you believed and you told people that you believed, you weren't lying to them. But as far as reconciling the Bible with you know, the things that it advocated, you know, slavery and these things that we would consider war crimes now, you know, people are dedicated to this book and they feel obligated to defend it, and that makes them obligated to defend these things that we see as immoral now. And it's understandable how your anger is understandable, because to be influence to defend these terrible things is not something that you should be happy about. I mean, that's a terrible thing. And now though, at least it's like finally getting on the right road. It's like you've been on this rough road, but now you can finally get on the right road and take the right path, and maybe help other people see their way out of it too.
Does that help at all, Laura? Or do you still have follow-ups?
I mean, I still am a little like iffy on what to do next, because I was so firmly entrenched within that culture that even my counselor is a Christian counselor.
Oh,
and no. she's really nice.
I'm sure.
But she does end every session with, "Can I pray for you now?" Which I can say no, but I feel guilty
That's unethical.
if I say no. So
That's why it's unethical, Laura. That's why it's unethical, because she is in a position of power in that situation. So I'm going to stop you about this, because the Christian counseling thing is something that just drives me, because you can be a Christian and be an amazing therapist. You can that's absolutely the case. And I want to make that abundantly clear. You can be any denomination of any religion and any type of theist and be an amazing therapist, but it is an unethical practice to attempt to convince anybody to believe anything, or even necessarily reveal what you believe when you're in a therapeutic session. You shouldn't be pushing it if you're an atheist either. So her asking, "Can I pray for you?" at the end of a session is actually abusing the ethics of that relationship. Because like you just said, you feel guilt. She's not supposed to elicit guilt from you. She's a counselor. Sorry to interrupt you, Dark Matter. I get really mad about that.
I understand, but what do you think is the motive behind asking? Because she could just do it, and it's between her and God, but because she's asking, it's her way of letting you know that she's doing it. But what do you think the motive behind that is?
Well, I think it goes back to when I first filled out my intake form. It specifically asked, "Are you okay with religion being brought in? Are you okay with praying during sessions?" And it asked what all of my limitations were. And I answered it honestly at the time, which was 3 years ago. And now I just don't feel the same. And I do feel like if I were to just broach her and say, like, "I don't really feel comfortable with that anymore, I'm really questioning a lot of my beliefs," she probably would never ask again.
Why was it even an option on the intake form? Why would it even be an option?
Because it's specifically a Christian counseling center.
Right. Right. Fair enough. So I could go on about the Christian counselors for ages. Yeah, no, I completely understand. And mental health assistance is not easy. Like, you kind of have to take what you can get. And unfortunately, the Christian ones and the theistically based ones tend to be more available and sometimes better subsidized, or your church will pay for them for you. So I completely understand that. I hope that she is helping in some ways, but is she... To resolve your attempting to find the right path, if you are with a counselor who isn't respecting that the path that you're choosing is away from religion, that is not necessarily going to be beneficial to you. It's not even necessarily, that is not going to be beneficial for you, because you're going to reach pushback. I'm probably not using the word resistance. That's the word I'm looking for. There's going to be resistance in the therapeutic process when it comes to you looking towards, what are my next steps on my journey as I become, more comfortable with my non-belief. If you don't think that she's going to be able to assist you with that, I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea. But like I said, I don't know your counseling program. But it sounds like that's something that is of paramount importance to you. So potentially you could see if you can find other support groups that might be able to assist you. So in the links of every one of my videos, I have Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project and the Clergy Project, which wouldn't necessarily pertain to you. But those are good resources to go to see if you can find a local counselor that is secular. And they also have lines that you can call in that have volunteers that are manning the lines that will help you kind of talk through these types of things, where you're not going to have to be met with somebody who's attempting to get you to justify why you're not religious anymore in order to deserve being an atheist. Like, they're not going to make you prove yourself through your journey, which it sounds like might be the case, which would make it more difficult for you, because you're already feeling guilt and you're already feeling anger. And if now you have to feel like you constantly need to prove yourself being in the position of belief that you're in, then that's not going to help you work through those. It's going to actually exacerbate them. So I would encourage you to maybe seek out counseling and therapy that accepts the fact that that is your belief system, and that you need to work through some religious damage so that you can walk out of this deconversion healthy.
How would a
completely am hearing you on that. Like, I completely understand and agree with what you're saying on that.
Okay.
It just sort of hit me, though, that what does that say about religion, that we have to create communities and programs and actual networks to help people deconvert?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm leaving one field for a different field, and I don't feel like I need to go through a whole therapy session just to make sure I'm making the right decision from leaving one field of study to another field of study. But I have to do this when I leave my belief system. It's sort of a big red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I interrupted you. Sorry, Dark Matter. Go right ahead. You were
No, I
attempting
was
to say something.
Go right ahead.
No, that. What happens with a Christian counselor if you express that your problem is with the religion, that that's where your issues are stemming? I mean, how do they? I would imagine that they try to bring you back into the fold, which would probably just make matters worse, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that my counselor is above that, but just because I've always interacted with her on the Christian side, I can't really say how she will interact with me on the atheist side.
Yeah.
So she may or she may not. She may be completely accepting and be like, all right, we're just going to shut that side down completely and talk about anything else. I don't know.
Do you have any trepidation in letting her know that that's the journey that you want to take?
My trepidation, I think, is mostly the fact that she has been with me for the past 3 years while I went through some really rough stuff. And due to insurance and such, I actually couldn't see her for the past year. But now I can because of insurance change. And I was really happy to see her and be able to talk about everything that's been going on and get a lot of things off my chest. And then at the very end, I was like, oh, right. She thinks I'm still Christian, and she just asked to pray with me. And now I'm just sort of like, I don't want to lose the support that she's provided for so long, but I don't want to feel guilty about lying to her about an aspect of my life, because you shouldn't be lying to your therapist. Like, that's a very bad thing and prevents healing.
This is why it frustrates me that there's specific therapeutic that's covered by insurance that is religious based, because if you come to a point like you have where religion is no longer a part of your life and the deconstruction of that is of primary importance for you to continue your life and be happy and healthy, you're now in an ethical quandary where you need to, if this is your only counselor and you have a history with this counselor, you're now in an ethical quandary where you can't bring up what you need counseling for and what you need assistance with, what you need mental health assistance with, because the constitution of the type of counseling that you're in is specifically geared to retain your faith. And now you would have trepidation to bring forth the fact that not retaining your faith is what you need to have counseling on, and trust issues as to whether or not they're going to respect that as your path forward. So I'm very sorry that there's a system built that puts you in that bind.
Yeah. At the
Sorry,
time, I thought it was a good thing, but
right.
now that I'm on the other side, what?
Yeah, sorry, I was just mumbling to myself about how I was mad. You can you can keep
Oh,
going.
okay. That's fine.
And if you
Thank
went
you for being
to
mad on my
new,
behalf.
and if you went to a
What,
new
dark matter?
counselor, if you went to a new counselor, you'd have to kind of like rebuild that history. You'd have to maybe go through and talk about things that were difficult to talk about maybe before, and you've already been through all that with this counselor, so it would be difficult to go through that with someone else. I would assume after years of being with this person.
Yeah. One of the things that does sort of benefit in my particular situation is my insurance will not cover the counseling once I leave this state, and I'm supposed to be leaving and moving to a different state in the next few months. So I would have to leave her anyways, and she is aware of that.
Okay.
But since I'm leaving, I don't feel like I can really start with a counselor here in Arkansas when I know that I'll be moving in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
So do I just wait until I'm in Texas and find a therapist there? Or do I just keep seeing her knowing that it's going to end in a few months when I move to Texas?
I would potentially go into the next session that you have, if you have one booked, with an open mind, especially since you're saying that, because I have biases, right? I've got my opinions on Christian counselors that may be coloring my perspective on this. So that's something to take into consideration also. So go in with an open mind and just talk to her in a very candid way about where you're going and why you're going there. And if you feel as though you can arm yourself with the protection to not be influenced by her, should she shoot you down and attempt to coerce you into retaining belief as a therapeutic strategy, then maybe she might be open to helping you with the journey. But if the entire organization is built around belief retention, there might be an issue there. So I'm hoping that when you go to Texas, you can find somebody there. And if not, like I said, there are resources online. They're in the links of every single video that I put on my channel. You can also find them online. If you listen back, I reeled them off. And there's all kinds of online communities too that can give you support. Like if you have Twitter or Facebook, there's many online communities, even private ones that have atheists that are going through sort of the same thing, or even agnostics or people that are questioning that are going through the same sort of things that you're going through, that will either support you or help connect you with resources that assisted them. So I think that that's a way to go about finding your way through this. And like I said, I'm sorry that it's so hard. There's not systems built to help people recover from trauma and mental damage that they suffered as a result of believing religious systems, but there's all kinds of mental health systems built to help you retain them, which is aggravating. It's aggravating, yeah, that's for sure. Something that frustrates me. Did you have anything else to follow up with before we let you go? We do have some other callers waiting.
No, y'all are good. Thank y'all so much. It's been really helpful.
No problem, Laura. Thank you so much for calling. Have a good rest of the day. Good luck.
Take care.
You too. Thanks.
Oh, that just frustrates me.
Yeah, you notice how religion has all of these institutions that organize and work off of each other, and to establish this dominance in our society, and it's like fighting tooth and nail to keep them at bay in any kind of secular area. It's out of the government, out of the schools. They're just it's like a dam holding back the water. They're just constant pressure, and they need this stuff because their ideas they don't stand up. So they need the indoctrination. They need the weekly, going to church every week to reinforce the bullshit. They need, all these institutions in order to reinforce their bad ideas, and they need the community. You know, you're more likely to believe ridiculous things if everyone around you believes those same ridiculous things. So the communities work out in their favor, and it's insidious and predatory.
Especially when it comes to mental health therapy, it's so difficult already to find mental health assistance, for it to even be taken seriously, because it's so stigmatized and we don't have health systems built to even deal with it. So the fact that there's Christian counselors that are specifically designated as Christian counselors, that you can utilize your insurance for too. Like what's a Christian doctor, right? Is there a doctor that engages in medicine, like practices medicine, a family doctor from a Christian perspective? No, because that's a ridiculous statement, right? What would that look like? But when it comes to mental health, for some reason, people seem to be able to compartmentalize it and think to themselves, well, that's not really health in the way that we traditionally look at physical health. That's a different kind of health. And we can kind of conflate mental health with spiritual health. And thus it's totally fine to have Christian therapists. But here's a perfect example of why that's ethically unsound. Because if somebody has an issue that's pertaining to non-belief and they've built a relationship with a Christian counselor who's specifically Christian and it's belief-based counseling, what do they do now? What do they do? Where do they go? Where do they turn? They're now in a binded quandary where they aren't even comfortable talking to their mental health advisor anymore, because they know that there's an underlying assumption that they should retain Christianity in order to continue getting their mental health. Their mental health assistance is being held hostage by this belief system. They should be entirely segregated. It's so unethical to combine them together. And I just can't fathom, why people don't see it. I just fucking can't.
And Christians are every bit as affected by medical conditions. Like there's no, God isn't watching out for them any more than he's watching out for anybody else. Statistically, you're not going to be better off medically as a Christian. You're not going to have a lesser chance of getting heart disease or asthma or diabetes. Like God clearly isn't looking out for you just because you're a Christian. Otherwise, we'd see a statistical difference, but we don't. So as far as the brain goes, I mean, that's the most complicated organ in your body. I mean, to just relegate that to spirituality is gonna somehow fix it is ridiculous.
Or even combining it with legitimate mental health, like secular therapy strategies. Why do you need to inject the religion into the therapeutic process? Why can't you just have the therapeutic process? What is the necessity to imbue it with religion? What's the necessity? Because you can be a Christian and go to secular therapy, and they're not going to try to not make you Christian. They're going to try to help you. You don't need to. Anyway, I just.
No, I understand.
Fucking makes me the most mad. All right, let's talk to Min. I like Min. Min's always interesting to talk to. Hey, Min, how you doing? Welcome to the line.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Hey,
hello,
bud.
Shannon. Hello, Dr. Mary.
What would you like to talk about today?
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the mental health issue here. In the previous callers, because this is where I would love your opinion. So Shannon, you probably know when we talked earlier about Jordan Peterson, he used the term metaphysical substrates, which kind of ambiguous and a little bit like difficult to understand, right? But if we use religion as in just as like a metaphorical truth, then do you think it's appropriate to include in the mental health treatment?
Do I think it's appropriate to
If that makes
incorporate
sense to you.
Okay, so do I think that it's appropriate to incorporate religion into mental health treatment? I think that that's a loaded question, because I think that most people do have religious beliefs, and it's not a therapist or counselor or psychiatrist job to convince somebody what they should or shouldn't believe. So there may be instances where what somebody believes comes up in the course of a therapy session, and it has not ever been, and should never be the place of somebody who is acting as a mental health professional to dictate or mandate what you should or shouldn't believe in the course of belief system. They're supposed to be asking you questions that help you engage in introspective analysis of your belief system. So it could come up in the course, but it would only come up in the course of therapy if the person who is receiving the therapy brings it up organically as part of the therapeutic process. The flip side to that coin is the therapist, the mental health professional, the counselor, the psychiatrist, should they ever bring it into the room? The answer is unilaterally, absolutely the fuck not. There is no reason for them to introduce religion or theistic beliefs in any way, for any reason, during the therapeutic process. Why on earth would they?
Yeah, I guess I don't support introducing religion in the treatment. What I'm saying that, like, let's say if somebody who is a counselor and the counselor happen to share the religion with the client, and then do you think that if they use the religion that they share with the client as a part of treatment,
it's unethical.
I guess motivation or whatever, then do you think it's a good way, or think
what if they both? Okay, let's put this in analogous, because I really want to drive this point home, because it's unethical, and there's a bunch of reasons why. So let's say that I'm counseling someone. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm just going to preface with that. I have a background in the field. So let's say that I am a counselor. Again, I'm not. That is working with somebody who has suffered sexual abuse. Let's say I also suffered sexual abuse when I was younger. Would it be appropriate for me to bring in my history of suffering sexual abuse into the counseling session because it helps us relate to one another? Absolutely not. 100% not. There's absolutely no way. My personal life, my personal beliefs do not come in to the picture. They are not meant to. I am meant to be a sounding board to help guide you through the therapeutic process. I'm not there to tell you what to think. I'm not there to tell you what I think. I'm there to help you assess your beliefs. I'm there to help you assess your thoughts. And I'm there to help you figure out what's going to be best for you going forward. I am not there to tell you what I think or what my experiences are. That is unethical, because I could have undue influence on you. Because now I am telling you I have these beliefs. We have a relational component now where I'm saying to you, this happened to me, or I have this belief. I'm in a position of authority. So that's somebody in a position of authority when you're in a vulnerable state, dictating to you that, this is what I believe. This is what I think. And you're modeling how to think or what to think, which can put ethical binds on the person. Like, what my perspective on religion deviates slightly from their perspective on religion? That happens all day, every day. Then we could potentially have a conflict that causes an issue with the person that I'm giving the therapy to. There is no course of therapy that I can even imagine being ethical where you would introduce what you believe or what your personal experiences are and how they relate to the patient would in any way enter into the room. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and then I totally understand, and I would love to hear you more about it, because I really like your Christian counseling video is very clear. So I guess my follow-up question would be: do you think that the issue with religion is because they tend to take the doctrine and the belief as factual, assertion, instead of using it as as a vehicle or a means to point to the truth. Just like like Weinstein called the term metaphorical truth. So if religion functions in that way, it meaning it's literally probably false, but if people follow it, then they end up in the more like they have more advantage than people who do not. And do you think that in that way then religion will be, I'm not going to say benign, but maybe less damaging and maybe even helpful?
I have thoughts about that, but I don't want to. I just monopolized. Dark Matter, did you want to have it? You want to have a go?
Oh, well, I mean, this is not really my area, but I would think that there's a lot more baggage to religious metaphors, whereas there's plenty of other secular metaphors that could be used in their stead. And I think that the last caller was a great example of, this is a little bit off the topic, but I'm just adding it in here. But the last caller was a great example of why it can be bad, because when the person stops believing, when their beliefs change, whether it be the counselor or the patient, then an unnecessary conflict arises that didn't need to be there. And as far as treating religion like a metaphorical truth, I don't see why there would be an obstacle in communicating these truths in ways that don't have this religious baggage attached to them, where there can be confusion, as far as, well, is this literal? Is it figurative? Is this political? Like, there's all kinds of additional things to worry about when we start talking about religion, especially like in a clinical atmosphere. That's basically my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I'd add to that too, that if you're saying that despite the fact that it's false, we could maybe say that it has some sort of benefit, because for at least a subset of people who adhere to it or believe it to be true, they may have beneficial outcomes. I don't think that that's necessarily a good argument either, because how are you quantifying beneficial outcomes? There's massive groups of people who would say that they're damaged by other people's religious beliefs, or they were damaged by their own religious beliefs. So just to say that, for this specific subset of people that adhere to this belief system, that group in society maybe becomes more cohesive and garners some benefit as a result to that, is not really seeing the forest for the trees, because there's other people who would be outside of the group who aren't garnering from that benefit, because not as demonstrated by the existence of reality, not everybody's going to adhere to the same belief system. So I think it kind of falls on its face there. And it's also essentially an argument from, well, if we can manipulate this group of people by telling them a lie into cohering and in maybe garnering some sort of benefit through that cohesion, or through the adhering to this belief system, they could have some sort of like ignorant benefit, so long as they don't stop adhering to it, because then that's another side to that coin. If they do stop adhering to it, they lose that benefit. So a lie is not ever going to be the right decision. And manipulating people shouldn't ever be the right decision. And creating massive outgroups shouldn't ever be the right decision. If you can just point to one group of people and say, okay, well, maybe these guys, they all believe this same thing. We don't think it's true, but they seem happy. So it's good for fucking them. But that doesn't mean it's true. And then it doesn't mean that it's unilaterally beneficial. And if you're looking for systems of society that are unilaterally beneficial, true humanity as a whole, and not just the groups to adhere to that, neat lie that so long as they continue to believe it, because God help them if they stop and get cast out. Like, do you see where that all falls apart for me? It just when you put it under the microscope, it just seems to not make sense anymore. Just saying, sometimes you can believe lies and be happy. So fucking what? Does that mean you should? Does that mean you'll always be happy? Does that mean that's the best way for all of us to exist? Probably not.
Yes, Shannon, I guess because maybe because when I look at what do they call, like cognitive behavior therapy, something like that.
Yeah, CBT.
It and to so it tend to like help the person with that treatment, like change their thinking. They try to help them see a different perspective. And I myself see there was a friend of mine when I was in an Aikido class, and he was a veteran, and he went to a few PTSD treatment with his psychologist, but it did not seem to work. And what he told me is that that when he read a story in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu scripture book, somehow the story in that helped him thinking about from a different perspective, help him accept the situation about what he went through, and since then he got better, and he embraced what's his life, and not suffering anymore. And of course, this is just an anecdote, but what I'm saying is that I think this is when when we talk about the metaphorical truth, then it just means that the narrative in religion will, if you read and then you think, it may help you wire your thinking in a different way.
But why does it need to be religious, though?
Away from the bad things. Yeah.
So why does it? My question here would be, why does it need to be religious, though? So you're essentially saying that there's relational aspects in narratives when you read them. So I read but I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Bhagavad Gita, and there was something in that narrative that he related to strongly enough that it helped to change his perspective. So good, that's great, but why couldn't so that's a book with a narrative built into it that has a spiritual aspect. It doesn't need to be true for that to be something that benefited him, and it doesn't need to be true for him to have, I guess, sort of found a relational component to the book that helped him understand himself a little bit better. He didn't need to start adhering to it for that to be the case either. And if he did adhere to it and stops, I don't think that that's going to go away if what really helped him was finding something to relate to in a narrative. Now, you can find something to relate to in a narrative in any kind of story, right? Like, why does it need to be religion? Because let's say I find something to relate to in the Bible, right? We'll use the Bible because I'm more familiar with it, or the Quran, whatever. Right. I find something to relate to that I find beneficial. That doesn't mean the book on the whole, or the religion itself, whole cloth, is beneficial. That means that I found something beneficial in the narrative, which there may well be there, and that I found something beneficial in the narrative. Now, if I expound upon that to say, well, because I found something beneficial in the narrative that helped me, that must mean all of this is true, then we have a problem, right? Because we're using an emotional lens to determine truth at that point. And I'm going to adhere to things that are detrimental because now I've shifted my perspective of what is or isn't true to if it's a component of something that I found benefit in, then I derive that as meaning truth. And I'm going to apply that same standard to everything all the way along the line. And that's not a good idea. Why can't you just recognize that, hey, sometimes we elicit emotions from reading through narratives that do or don't have spiritual components, and that helps us introspect a little bit better and see things from different perspectives, and just fucking leave it at that.
Yes, and I will admit with you that you're so on point that I do admit with you that I am biased about this because because I grew up in a totally different religion than Abrahamic system. So all I learned about religion from my view is there are parables and metaphors and allegories that help people to speculate about their life and their perspective and help them see things with a broader view. So I guess in that sense I think that's where I feel like religion can be beneficial in that area. Now, of course, when we touch into the literal fact about religion, then what 100% with you that it's really, really bad. And I guess, because the Western tradition of religion, I guess like it's more like all or nothing. Either, it's a true or false, or, it cannot do anything for you. But, when I talk to people from Hindu tradition or Buddhist or Taoist, and I myself practice Taoism, and that it doesn't have to be literally true, but it will help if you read it and you think it will help you greatly. You don't have to take it as fact, but it will.
I'm with you.
Something.
I like people reading and thinking. Yeah. I'm on that team.
Yeah.
We're on the same team there, man. Reading and thinking.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
I don't know, Darkmatter, do you have anything to contribute before we move on to the next one? We do have a few more callers in, but did you have anything to say to Min before we go?
No.
Okay, cool. Min, I am going to let you go.
Pretty much covered everything.
I never shut up. It's a problem. Min,
That's
thank you. I always love talking to you. No, it's true though.
Well, thank you so much,
Shannon.
Thank you, Darkmatter. It's so great to talk to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Next, we are going to talk to Penel. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that, there's a lot of stories, like lessons in the Bible anyway, that predate the Bible or come from secular sources, or like Jesus saying to love your enemies, and there's things that translate to that, like you can attract more flies with honey than vinegar, or the golden rule, things like that. These are valuable lessons, and they don't have to have a religious monopoly. They don't have to be that way. You can, the Bible is one source where you can get this stuff, but then you have the baggage with the Bible too. So there's people that can't parse stuff out. They can't parse out the good from the bad. Some people just take it all. It's all good. It's in the Bible, therefore it's good. And they'll see good things like the golden rule and treating your enemies, not with hatred. They'll see good things, and then they'll have a difficult time recognizing the bad parts, especially with the religious authority, with the God authority, backing the verses. How could it be wrong? There's vast differences in the way people treat the Bible. Like when we were talking about Ken Ham, there's Christians that get mad at me when I argue against people like Ken Ham, because I'm the one who's misrepresenting their religion all of a sudden, because I'm the one supposedly taking Genesis literally. When no, I'm not. I'm just responding to someone who does. And I find that incredibly frustrating. So, when we talk about, getting parables, from the Bible and finding, value in these stories, I'm always leery about that, because some people, they can't do that. They take these stories, they put these stories up on a pedestal, and they don't all take them the same way, Yeah.
And I do worry, like I said, you were more articulate there than I, but I do worry that if people look at a relational, emotional experience being beneficial to them as equating truth, and they attempt to apply that standard consistently, ultimately it will be detrimental. Just because it's beneficial in one aspect to have this illusion that something that's false was beneficial because it was true, it's a slippery road to go down. So yeah, I appreciate that input. It was interesting to think about. Next we are going to talk to Penelope. So let me see if I can get Penelope on the line. It's not letting me pick up. Goodness gracious. I'm trying to talk to Penelope. Hi, I think I got you. Hi, Penelope.
Hello?
Are you there? Hi. Yeah, I think I got you. So sorry. Oh my goodness, it wouldn't let me click on you. You're on the line. What would you like to talk about, Penelope?
Awesome. Hey, so I wanted to actually talk to Dark Matter 2525. And so I'm 24, and I was actually introduced to your videos when I was in high school. And at that point, I was basically a mini preacher, very, very Christian, leading Christian organizations at my school. And I saw a couple of your videos, and I was terrified, legit terrified. And shut it off. Was like, I can't, like, those are raising questions that I haven't had in a long time. I'm not dealing with that. And just kind of like shut it off and just kind of like put it to the side. And within the last few months, I've slowly gone through basically deconversion and am now an atheist, and your videos have been incredibly helpful in that process. So it's been a very interesting experience.
I'm glad that it's turned out okay. I don't. My intention is never to cause anybody any sort of trauma or anything like that. And I realized that some of my earlier videos were more crass probably than they should have been, and I'm trying to be better about that.
No, and I don't mean it like that at all. It was more just I was so confident in what I believed, and I was so sure that I was right. And that was the first time that I was really face to face with maybe you're not. And so watching them now and like not being afraid of those questions anymore, it's so surreal, because I'll watch a video that I remember watching when I was in high school, and it brings me back to who I was in that moment, and it's it's just so strange. And it's like I remember watching this and getting so offended and so confused, and now I'm seeing it and I'm like, how did I hold on to this for so long? And my deconversion's been like, part of it's been years and part of it's been really quickly. But I'm kind of slowly becoming more comfortable with calling myself an atheist, and going through all of this and just figuring out like what I do and don't believe, which is, something I never thought I'd have to establish. But just, I don't know, being able to tell you how much your videos mean to me, and how I really did a 180. It's really, I appreciate being able to tell you that, and I really appreciate your content.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, and I'll try to keep going, and I'll try to keep improving and doing better, and taking that into consideration for people that where it might scare them. That's a good thing to keep in mind. That's good to know, so that maybe I can find a way to word things with that in mind, with that might reassure them. I've never thought about that before.
Well, and I don't think it's that you're necessarily doing anything wrong. I think it's more just I was so self-assured, and that was the first time that wall had been poked at. It was like, hey, this isn't as bulletproof as you think it is. And like in the moment, I wasn't in a place where I could deal with that. My faith was my entire identity, and it was like, if I'm not a Christian, I don't know who I am.
Right.
And so I was like, I can't deal with these questions. And I, went to college and slowly started tearing apart other belief systems that I held. I was also very far right wing, did some research, not that anymore. Very much progressive and very vocal about it. And kind of did a 180 on that as well. But I've slowly been picking apart at my belief system and seeing like what do I believe and why. And it was so, I don't know, it was interesting to realize that a lot of the beliefs I held were not founded on anything other than I had been told this for so long that I assumed it to be true. And being able to see what was valid and what wasn't, and just kind of seeing a new person in the mirror is so bizarre.
Oh, this is making me smile. It's a good moment. I'm so happy. Especially after my AXP hosting earlier. This is such a wholesome show compared to the one I just finished hosting.
Actually, I watched Shannon. I watched you with Matt Dillahunty today too, and
I'm so sorry.
I watched. No, but it's just so weird because like I haven't gone to church in years, and I'm like, this is the first time that on Sunday I'm looking forward to communion with people. Like it was because someone had mentioned like you guys are creating your own church. I think it was on Talk Heathen today, and it's like it's more just we have a community with people that talk like who discuss the same thing. But it's like I'm looking forward to this on Sundays, and it's the exact opposite of what all my family is doing on Sundays.
Oh my God. If they think the atheist experience is a church, what the hell do they think about Comic-Con, for Christ's sakes? Jesus. Like, people with shared interest in discussing religion.
Brought up something like that. It's like people getting together and discussing things does not equal church, but okay.
Fair enough. We do have a couple more. Oh, go ahead, Dark Matter. Sorry.
Sometimes I lean into that when I get accused of that, and I tell them, look, do you know how I can maybe make it happen where I can establish some tax exemptions, because that would be nice. I'll fine. I'm a religion.
That reminds me. I'm sure you're probably aware, but the John Oliver episode where they talk about churches and their tax code, and they like create a church founded on the idea that the tax law is bullshit, and like all the money that they raise and all of that.
Yep. I do recall. Yeah, it's funny. We do have to let you go, though. I very much appreciate your call. Thank you so much. And it was nice to watch you two connect. It was nice for me. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Bye. Bye. All right. That was lovely. Aw, you helped her.
Yeah.
Aw. I felt that in all my feelings. Turns out I have feelings.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm able to. I'm glad I'm able to make a difference. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know, I'm not confident all the time that I'm doing, the video in the right way, if there's a better way maybe, or whatever, but then I get messages like that and I feel better about it,
That's so great. The fact that you care so much about the effect that it does have too speaks volumes, because a lot of people they don't consider it as much, and the fact that you do is one of the reasons that I like you so much, Dark Matter. And I only like 3 or 4 people, so there you go. Maybe 5.
Early on, I was like that. I just put out whatever I wanted to put out, but as the channel grows and you get hundreds of thousands of people watching, it's a different story. Then I think there's more responsibility there.
Agree. I completely agree. And yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take the next call. Hey, this is a theist named Hunter. Hunter, I'm bringing you through. Hi, Hunter, you're on the line. Hi. What would you like to talk about?
Hey, this is my first time calling. I just wanted to ask you guys a question, because I was raised in a very, very secular household, and I converted to Christianity over a year ago. And one of the reasons, there were many reasons why, but one of the main reasons was something of a form of the Aristotelian cosmological argument, the idea of, there is actualization of potential in the world, that which is actualized must be actualized by something that's already actual, so on, this can't go on forever, I assume you've heard of it in some form or another. And
it can't be turtles all the way down.
I obviously believe that I'm right, but you know what? I'm a man, I am fallible, I could be wrong, and I want to hear what it is about that that's not convincing to y'all.
Sure. Would you like to go, or would you like me to go first, Dark Matter?
It's up, whatever you want to do. You can go first. I'll think about it some more.
Okay. So
if you want.
Oh, I'll never stop talking. You just give me a chance.
Sure.
So when it comes to, in order for something to be actualized, there must be an actualizer. Let's just say that I'll grant you that, right? I'll say, like, sure, something needed to actualize it. I've said this often enough that I hope people have heard me say it, that you could shift me into some sort of like panentheist, maybe pantheist, or maybe even sort of deistic position that would all be supported by that type of an argument, and I wouldn't be much bothered, right? I don't necessarily believe that it's true. I don't necessarily think that it is the case, but I'll even for the sake of the conversation, I'll just grant you that. I'll say, sure, maybe there's something actualized something. Now, to get from the something actualized something, like something needs to be actual in order to actualize, to get from that and then go all the way from that to it's got cognitive states, it makes decisions, it wants to have a relationship with us, to get, that's an issue for me. That's a problem. That I don't get there. Something needed to start something doesn't go all the way to, and it thinks that I'm neat and created me specifically in its image so that it could have a relationship with me, and that's the only reason anything at all exists. You see what I'm getting to there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
If I understand you correctly, it's something to the idea that, okay, for the sake of argument, and I know that you're not committing to this, but for the sake of argument, let's say that there is that Aristotelian unactualized actualizer.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's God, at least not in the Christian sense. Is that kind of what you're trying to get at?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I hear that. My response to that would be, and this is something that I believe that St. Thomas Aquinas addressed as well starts in the prima pars of the Summa Theologiae, question 3 through question 6, in which he talks about the divine attributes of God. And he says that, reasoning from an Aristotelian perspective, there are certain things that would have to be true of the uncaused cause, what he calls actus purus, pure actuality.
Yeah, the classical theist perception of God. It would be it would have to be it would have to be immutable, comprised of no parts. It would have to be absolutely simple, and it would have to be timeless, spaceless, immutable, and absolutely simple. I think I might be missing one. So that's the classical theist conceptualization of God, right? So if we're going to go with the classical. Right, sure, yeah. So it's going to have cognitive states. Now, so let's go to the immutable portion of that. So if something is immutable, it can't be influenced by anything, right?
It cannot undergo change itself. That's correct.
Yeah, it can't undergo any changes, and those changes would include things like its mental states, right? Like its opinions on things couldn't be changed by anything outside of itself. Right. Okay. So where does sin come from then? Why is it upset by sin?
Sorry,
why does it want a relationship with us? We exist outside of it. Why does it want a relationship with us?
You mean why can
we influence its mental states? Yeah, why can we influence its mental states?
Because if God's mental state,
so then it doesn't need a relationship with us. God. So by the classical theist definition,
right? So by the classical theistic perception, God does not gain anything from us. Right? He doesn't need us. It doesn't make it better or worse for him, for us to be the case, for us to.
Then why create?
Him, right? Like so.
Yeah.
Why create?
And that's a good question. And I think that I would hope like a responsible Christian would have to admit we don't know as a matter of certainty, but that also doesn't mean I don't think that we can't, take some guesses or take some, take some reasonable inferences. And I think that one thing would be that if the classical theistic conception of God is true, which obviously is something that you and I will not agree on, But if it is true,
no.
then God
Never.
is, right. But like then God is infinite goodness, and that it is out of his, and that he is not ontologically bound by anything external to him, and that therefore, out of matter of freedom of his own will, wanted to create. Right? He was not made to. He was not forced to, but that he.
So he had a desire
share
for something outside of himself.
Right. So we're speaking analogically, right? Like, we are, like, when I say that he desires this, it's not desire strictly, it's not a univocal use of the word desire. We're speaking analogically, because what does it mean to desire in someone who who does not think discursively, who doesn't cogitate, who doesn't undergo changes in mental states, which God does not, right? So we can rationalize about what God may be like, in a sense, but we have we have to be consistent in saying that he is not subject to change in any manner whatsoever.
Right, and he can't be influenced.
That's correct. He cannot be influenced.
Right. And he's entirely self-sustaining in a state of absolute perfection and perfect happiness without anything else existing external to him.
Right. So, okay, happiness.
But
right?
he needed to
So
create something external to him. Why did he need to create something external to him if he was already in a state of absolute perfection existing on his own? Why did he want to? What is it like to have a want if you're already in a state of absolute perfection existing on your own and self-sustaining perfection?
Right. And therein lie, I mean, first of all, I would say that I don't think that
yours has problems too.
What did you say?
Yours has problems too. Like, you have to be honest. You have to be honest and admit that, like, there's some holes, and especially in immutability. There's some holes in immutability for sure, right? Especially if you look at us as requiring a relationship, like as God wanting a relationship with us. Either he does or doesn't want a relationship with us. He did or did not create us for a purpose. What does it look like to be absolute? Why does he want a relationship then? Because if he's in a state of absolutely self-sustained happiness and perfection, completely irrespective of anything else that exists, the entirety of the universe, including us little specks of dust on this planet, he would have absolutely no need for a relationship with us. We're required not.
Oh, that's correct.
For his right. So
he does not need a relationship with us.
But he wants one.
Right. So we would say that in a sense that it is the papal encyclical Deus Caritas Est, God is love. God is not a loving being, but God is love itself. And what is it to love but to will the good of the other? And so we would say that in a similar way, how somebody can go and do an act of charity, right, in which the person doing the act of charity does not, strictly speaking, gain anything for him or herself, but wants to do it because it is better for the person to whom they are helping. We would say in a somewhat analogous way that is the reason that God desires to create, because it is for the goodness of the other.
Yeah, but you engage in altruistic activities likely because you garner some sort of self-emotional gratification from engaging that altruistic activity. Sure. You don't do it because of negative or neutral emotion.
Analogically.
Yeah, so there's motivations. There's motivations that are based on emotional states. So you would have to, if you're making that analogous, you would have to admit that you're essentially attributing emotional states to God, and emotional states can't exist in a state of perfection because emotional states, he can't have emotional states, obviously.
He does not have emotional states. Right, God does not have emotional states, right? So, and this
how do you have a relationship without an emotional state?
Well, this is where Aquinas's discussion on analogy is, in my opinion, very important, because we can't, when we say that God wills or that God loves, it is strictly speaking analogous. It's not. We're not using the term love or generosity univocally, right? And that is a crucial distinction. Because when we, being finite material beings, undergo acts of charity, we experience that in a discursive way. And but that doesn't mean that something like a pure act of generosity is not logically conceivable, right? While it is surely the case that, from an evolutionary perspective, I think we have very good reason to believe that that there is something of a quote unquote selfish aspect to charity that exists in, the kind of wired into our DNA from our proto-human ancestors. I'll concede that.
I mean,
but that doesn't mean.
I gotta say though that for a God that made us in His image, you're making Him seem extremely different than anything we are.
Well, he is.
What is the similarity?
So we would say that God does not even have a genus, right? So God is not. Aquinas made it very clear that he conceived of God not as ens summe, highest being, but rather ipsum esse subsistens, subsistent being itself, right? God is that whose essence and existence are one and the same, right? So yeah, like he has made us in His image, in a sense that the human heart, and that we would say like the human soul, has a natural and imminent teleology towards the beatific vision. Now, does that mean that we exist in the same genus as God? No, we don't. God transcends genus. But right, so yeah, that like to be made in the amount of
God is
takes more.
God is just pretty much everything. I mean, it's almost like defining God out of existence. Like, what is the difference? What is the difference between God and nothingness in this aspect, or God in literally everything? Like, just define everything as God.
Well, so
what's the delineation? Right. Like, where's the delineation?
Like a pantheism.
Right.
Yeah,
where's the delineation between God and the rest of us?
I'm interrupting you. I think there might be a delay. Let me know.
There's a delay. There's a delay. There's no interrupting. It's just a delay, and it's making it seem like there is. But I understand. It's not rudeness or anything.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And so I want to make sure that I got your question right. And please feel free to interrupt or delayedly respond if I get it wrong. Because I think it's a good point, and I think it's something that all Christians need to grapple with, which is, at some point, we're getting to a conception of God that's so abstract and it's so difficult to wrap our mind around that it almost seems like, well, what's the difference from that just straight up pantheism? That just God is everything. Well, there is a difference here, and at least in the way that I see it. But pantheism, I would say, cannot be true because the universe itself has a sense of contingency. And we can talk about, a Leibnizian rationalist contingency, or we can talk about a more like Aristotelian Neoplatonic metaphysical contingency, in which we say that we do recognize that the fundamental particles, whether they be leptons and gluons or something even smaller, that compose the universe, exist in one way when they could exist in another way. And you can think of this as being matter of a composite, or existing simply, or existing in location A as opposed to location B, but they undergo a sense of contingency, which is the same thing as to say they have potentials being actualized. But the first cause, as the argument goes, could not in principle have any potentiality within it. So we can't equate this actus purus to the universe, because the universe has potentiality within it. We know this also because the universe is expanding, right? Based off of all the evidence that we have, I want to say it was 13.8 billion years ago, that when the Big Bang occurred. And, I'm also not committed to the idea that the Big Bang was the beginning of everything. Could be a multiverse, could be a big crunch, that's above my pay grade. But that the universe itself is undergoing change, which is to say it's undergoing actualization of potential. And so, yeah, that could not be God. That could not be actus purus, because there is potentiality within it. So God, the actus purus, that whose essence is existence, would have to be something that is separate from the universe, but that sustains the universe in being.
Interesting. So existing outside of the universe.
As opposed to existing inside.
So,
or be a part of, like literally the universe and God being one and the same, or say like the universe being, the totality of the universe being God. I guess that would be pantheism, right?
That would be
one of my issues is coming to these conclusions before we can even adequately define the universe, and that's a question that we probably will never be able to answer. Is what all does the universe entail? We probably won't ever know. Our ideas about what it is has changed dramatically throughout history, and our most recent concept of it starts at the Big Bang. So that's the known universe that we're talking about. But you go beyond that and say what we know about our universe is enough. The potentiality is enough. Right.
Right. The fact that there exists potentiality in the world that needs to be actualized necessitates the existence of pure actuality. Yeah, that is the kind of Cliff's Notes version of the Aristotelian cosmological argument, and it's about these causal series ordered per se as opposed to per accidens, right? So we're not talking about Aristotle himself thought that the universe was eternal, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with time. It's saying that the here and now, the fact that there are potentialities being actualized at all means that there must be a purely actual actualizer in principle.
So I think we're back to the beginning of the conversation, where I feel like we went full circle. Sorry if I'm interrupting. I was listening for a while, but it just seems like that's just taking us right back to the start, and then we get into the definition again, and that's where I have a problem. Like, even if I say, okay, something flicked the dominoes, which is what that amounts to in my mind, like something got this whole thing started.
It could be something without thought, without it's like a branch breaks off of a tree and falls in the woods and makes a big crash, and you get scared, because you think it's a living thing. It just seems like anthropomorphizing, the universe, or what caused the universe, when it doesn't have to be intentional. In my eyes, what you're explaining, I don't see a reason to see it as intentional.
Well, sure, and I would say that when we talk about the creation of the universe ex nihilo, as Christianity asserts, that's a separate argument, right? Because the Aristotelian cosmological argument would work even if the universe didn't have a beginning, right? It is. Whereas you say like the flicking of the domino example. If you have a series of 100 dominoes and you flick the first domino, you can remove the first domino from the table, and the other dominoes will still continue to move. Whereas if you have a chandelier that is hanging from a ceiling, and you remove the ceiling, the chandelier will fall. And so it is that latter sort of causal series that Aristotle appeals to, and consequently Aquinas appeals to in the Summa Theologica Prima Pars, in his question about
God is the grounding of God is the grounding of perceivable reality, and without God existing, there is no grounding through which the universe or any other form of perceivable reality could manifest and exist, is what you're saying. So it's not that not that there was initial. So if it's the grounding for all of the entirety of the universe and nothing can exist without it, I'll grant you that again. I still don't get to, from something is grounding the entirety of reality to it really also wants me to have a relationship with it and not wear mixed fabrics or eat shrimp.
To Jesus Christ.
Right. right, or have incarnated as, or be Trinitarian,
and
right?
then
and
right,
yes,
Trinity is a whole other ball of wax, right?
Well, and this is where I would say, right. So like that, and that's a very good question. And it's a very fair question, and I would say that ultimately, the cosmological argument as I described does not answer the question of, is God Trinity or is he not? Does he care about the world or does he not? Does he interact with the world or does he not?
Does he have the properties that people assign to him or not?
Right.
Or does the Christian God actually contradict those things?
Yeah, sometimes can't.
Right. Well, yeah. The cosmological argument will only tell you about like these divine attributes as we have discussed them. Now, I would say, and this is a whole different conversation. But as you probably
you might have to call back then, though, because we are at time. So, one more thing before we finish up.
Sure.
I've enjoyed talking to you, though, Hunter. Really, it's an interesting conversation to have. I hope you do call back again. I know call-in shows aren't always the easiest to explore these things, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, and my primary motivation is, my goodness, like, there's so much animosity in the world, and I'm very tired of seeing a lot of Christians and atheists and, people from across the gamut of just inability to have a genuinely good conversation with one another, of goodwill, and trying to understand each other's perspectives. And, I very firmly believed in atheism not too long ago, and now I've obviously changed my mind, and I recognize that I could be wrong. And so, I want to put that out there, and I do believe that if Christianity is true, then it should be able to be rationally defended. And if it can't be, well, then it's not true. Then it couldn't in principle be true. So, yeah, I really enjoyed getting to talk with you. I guess I will think about your points as I hope you would think about mine, and I wish you all the best, and I probably will call later.
Good. I'm glad you felt heard, and I appreciate that you called. I look forward to you calling back. Thank you very much, Hunter.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good one.
Have a good night. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
We have come to an end.
Yep.
I didn't mean to interrupt you again. How'd you feel about that? That was an interesting call.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I feel like these arguments are based on rules that are taken as a given, that are based on rules with it's like advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Aquinas's idea about God being essence and existence, or it's like, all right, you're basing this stuff on like what is essence, and you want to talk about how God is love, God is, you attribute X, that's a good thing, or whatever, and how we as humans can't comprehend this, and all of this stuff just seems so unnecessary to me, and it all's kind of like self-referential. It's just it doesn't it's not a good. It doesn't have good explanatory utility to me. It doesn't show. Well, basically, that's. I don't want to go on and make it too late, but I'm not explaining myself well. But it's advanced Dungeons and Dragons to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just enjoy talking about it, just in general, and I'm happy that Hunter felt like he was listened to. But I'm kind of with you there. Just saying something started it is what it equates to me. Something started things. So
yeah.
So all of this follows, and that's where things start to fall apart for me. And I don't know how something can defy comprehension and then simultaneously be explained and understood as true, because clearly you wouldn't be able to comprehend it if it defies comprehension.
Yeah, and ultimately it's based on intuition, because it's like, well, something had to have started. Well, I mean, that sounds fine and dandy, because that's how we experience the world. But if quantum mechanics has taught us anything, is that there's all kinds of stuff that actually happens that we would have never thought happens. And simply saying that things have always been going on forever, even though there was a big bang. Maybe there was, it would be incoherent to say there was something before it, but let's say there's a bunch of other space-time continuums going on, a bunch of other big bangs going on, and we just happen to be in one and can't see the others, and it was always going on for forever and ever and ever. I mean, it's conceivable. I just think that we're drawing conclusions that we aren't equipped to draw. So I'm agnostic in that regard. I just say, well, I don't know, and we're probably never going to know, but I'll be more than happy to talk about what I do know, and that is like this is obviously written by people with definite values that they've developed in their society, and they wrote these stories about this God they believe in that is not. It's clearly a human God, to me. It's very clear to me, and there's clear contradictions. And there's stuff that doesn't even line up with what you were saying with this idea of. That's the exact same thing I wanted to ask too, is how do you bridge that gap from just something that started the ball rolling to all of these intricate beliefs in the Christian religion. That's a pretty big gap to go, that just so happened to coincide with all these cultural beliefs, not just limited to the culture of that particular religion, but you can trace back these cultural laws, these rules, regulations, norms, all throughout history, and see how they evolved, and then to suddenly stamp a God onto them at a specific point in history. I mean, that's very suspect to me.
I love listening to you. I'm so glad that you were here today. I've just been smiling the whole time. I'm so excited. I'm sad that it's ending.
I constantly feel like I'm not explaining myself well. That's why I kind of script everything out, because I tend to ramble and don't say what I really trying to say as well as I am thinking about it.
Oh, it's a hard skill to master. People don't realize how difficult it is, and I say that as someone who's not even close to mastering it. But I do it anyway, all the time, and you did better than me today. So I think you should give yourself more credit, my good sir. Well,
yeah, that's why I'm trying to do more of these, because trying to get used to speaking off the cuff and to other people. Yeah.
So you're going to come do this with me again, is what I just heard. So that's what I heard.
I'll be happy to. Sure. Yes. I'll be happy to.
Fantastic. All right, now I'm happy again. I don't need to be sad that it's over, because it's going to happen again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're watching on my channel, please go subscribe to The Line. What are you doing? You have to subscribe to The Line so that you can see it. Maybe next time he comes back, he won't be with me. If you're here for Dark Matter, you won't get to see him again. If you're on my channel, you've got to go subscribe to The Line. And I thank everybody for tuning in today. And as always, help elevate the discourse. Bye, guys.
Take care.